Hello, I am Altair, and this is the Reverie Audio's Q&A. Yeah, I got a lot more questions than I was originally anticipating. I'm not complaining. I am very thankful to all of you for all of your curiosity and your questions and everything. It was a very pleasant surprise. So, yeah, I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as possible so this doesn't end up being like 2 hours long. But, yeah, if nothing else, hopefully this is just something that you can play in the background and zone out to. I don't know. It's your life. Do with it what you will. Yeah. So I guess I'll just get right into it and stop wasting everyone's time. And I'm answering these in no particular order, pretty much just the order that I took the screenshots in. Yeah. So first we have, for all of the characters except the Puppeteer Demon, what are their favorite cookies, and what do I, Altair, think they smell like? Both questions that I've never particularly put a lot of thought into, but I'm just gonna go in like bam, bam, bam. No thoughts, head empty, just, yeah. First thing that comes to mind. Casey. Chocolate chip. And what he smells like, I don't think he really uses like cologne or anything like that. And by the way, like, even though I guess you could say that technically all of these answers are canon, for a lot of these things like this, it's like, it's totally up to your interpretation. If you don't like the way I'm describing it, feel free to ignore it. Like, I'm not putting a lot of thought into a lot of these. It's just instinctual. Yeah. Anyway, Casey, probably I wouldn't say that he really uses a lot of cologne or anything like that. So honestly, he probably smells kind of just like his soap, like a clean smell. I don't know. Is that an answer? Clean. Cyril. Cinnamon cookies. I could see him liking cinnamon cookies. And oddly enough, I think he would smell like cinnamon too. Desmond. I don't see him eating cookies that often, and when he does, it's probably because Law made them or something, and he's like stealing them from him, you know, like in that best friend, I'm claiming what's rightfully mine, like what's yours is mine, staking his claim. So yeah, honestly, it's probably whatever Law has made most recently. As far as how he smells, I could see him smelling like spicy in some way. I don't know. Just something along those lines, like warm and spicy. Yeah. Dion. Peanut butter cookies, definitely, yeah. And as far as he, like, smells like, it's probably like a vaguely smoky smell. Like, not necessarily like wood smoke, but something along those lines, you know, just vaguely smoky. Ellis, I feel like they would like, you know, those like lemon lavender cookies. Yeah, that are snickerdoodles. One of the two. And for scents, probably something very natural smelling, like natural as in like nature, like petrichor or fresh cut grass, that kind of thing, you know? Gage. That's another peanut butter cookie right there. Yeah, especially if it has chocolate chips in it. Yeah, that's Gage. And for scents, he's probably kind of like Desmond, but rather than like a warm spiciness, more like a sharp spiciness. If that makes sense, it probably doesn't. As you can probably tell, I am not a scent connoisseur. Yeah. Oh, but Gage, absolutely. When he was in like late middle school, early high school, he was absolutely that guy who just like poured Axe body spray all over himself, like a menace to everyone around him. Yeah, like he was that guy. Luckily, he outgrew that. Yeah, but those couple of years, it was rough for everyone. Let's see. Jacob. Does that count as the puppetry demon? Jacob smells like death and despair. We'll just go with that. Kane. Kane is kind of like Desmond, where I don't really see him, like, willingly eating cookies just because, you know? Like, he didn't grow up with the food and sustenance that was available. It wasn't a lot of, like, sweet things. So, I feel like that's just, yeah, it's not something he really reaches for, you know? And as far as scents go for Kane, he's, again, kind of like Dion, where he probably smells like vaguely smoky. Law. I feel like he likes chocolate cookies, like pure chocolate with like sea salt on top, you know? Maybe caramel in there somewhere. Caramel, however you want to pronounce it. But I feel like when he makes cookies or buys them or anything like that, now it's usually like the kind that Nat likes, which I have no idea what she would like. But yeah, her preferences kind of take priority. As far as scents go, I feel like he would smell kind of like warm and musky almost, but not in like the body odor way, like in the intentional cologne kind of way, you know? Yeah, that and like just the smell of his soap. Like, I feel like he goes for more subtle things. Marlo. Marlo hasn't. When he was younger, I feel like he ate cookies more. But recently, he hasn't exactly been in a position to even really want them. When he was younger, it was probably like chocolate chip or something like that. And I know we haven't really gotten super into Marlo's story or backstory or anything yet, and we will actually tomorrow, assuming this comes out Friday. We'll be getting another video for him, and we'll learn a little bit more about him. Anyway, since he's also not currently really in a position to wear like cologne or anything like that, like, yeah, he hasn't exactly, even before his current situation, that wasn't really his priority. It was more just, do I not stink? Okay, cool. Yeah. Neo. For cookies. I could see him liking like lemon cookies or some kind of citrus cookie, you know? And for scent, oddly enough, I could also see him having like a very citrus kind of smell to him. Like, whether that be like a spiced citrus or like a cleaner, sharper citrus, I don't know, but yeah, something kind of like that. And last but not least, Roman. I feel like Roman would like those cookies. I forget what they're called. It's like a sandwich cookie, but it's got like a little window cut out in the top, and it's got like a thick, like, fruit filling in the center. Those cookies, you know? I'm probably not describing that very well. But I feel like you would like those. And for scents, he's another one that I feel like he kind of just smells like soap. Like clean skin. Like, I honestly feel like he's probably sensitive to really strong smells. I don't know, I just get that vibe. Yeah, so I think that's all of them. Okay, and next. Do I have a plan to have any female voices for my audios? And if so, is there anyone that I'm in talks with on it? I'm not currently in talks with anyone about it. Like, I haven't spoken with anyone about it or anything like that, but yeah, absolutely in the future, if, like, I were to find someone who was interested in doing it. Yeah, I could see that happening, especially, there's one audio that at the end of this year, I could see that fitting well. But, yeah, I could see that in the future. Next, how do I come up with the voices for the different characters? Mostly trial and error and experimentation. A lot of them, it's kind of like I knew that they were going to need to be distinct from an existing voice. Like, two characters needed to be very distinct from each other because they would be interacting with each other. Like Kane and Dion, their voices are pretty distinct from each other. And like, well, Law and Desmond aren't super separate, but there's like the accent and all that, so they're a little bit more distinct. Gage and Neo originally weren't going to really interact with each other, aside from that very first video where they interacted, but I ended up liking them together, so I kind of screwed myself over with that one. But yeah, it's mostly a lot of trial and error and just what I think sounds like the character. That wasn't a very specific answer, I'm sorry. Next is, do my characters have birthdays and ages, and how old was Lawrence when he had Nat? And what's the story with him and his ex? Okay, so I'll also pop it up on the screen so you guys can, see the answers too. And to preface this, again, this is something where, like, if you don't agree with, like, these ages or anything like that, like, you imagined them totally differently, that is perfectly fine. Like, even though, again, this is technically canon, like, you can feel free to imagine them whatever age you want, really. If you want to imagine Desmond as 42, imagine him as 42, If you want to imagine Roman as, like, 20, imagine him as 20, It's, yeah. The power of imagination. Okay, so Casey was born on July 22nd, and he is 20 years old. Cyril was born on October 10th, and he is 26 years old. Desmond was born January 16th, he is 29 years old. Dion doesn't have a specific birthday. They kind of have something like that, but that hasn't been covered too much, so he just doesn't have a specific birthday. And he is 45 years old, which is a young adult by Flame Demon standards. Ellis was born October 30th and is 27 years old. Gage was born April 28th, and he is 24 years old. Jacob, both, original Jacob, if you've watched his storyline, and the Puppeteer Demon. Neither of their, original Jacob's birthday is unknown to everyone, probably, except for the Puppeteer Demon, who doesn't really care. Can't see him sharing that information just for funsies. And the Puppeteer Demon, they don't really do the whole birthday thing, so that's unknown. But the Puppeteer Demon is approximately 200 years old, give or take. Kane, again, like Dion Dion doesn't have a specific birthday, but he is 52 years old, which is like a slightly older young adult by Flame Demon standards. Law was born August 7th and is 29 years old. Marlo was born February 3rd and is 21 years old, and Neo was born June 12th and is 23 years old. And lastly, he's always last because for some reason I like to do these in alphabetical order. Lastly is Roman, who was born on August 6th and is in his late 20s or early 30s because time travel, it's iffy. Okay, so I'm recording this after I've recorded everything else because I realized I forgot to answer part of the question. Nat and Law and Zex. Law had Nat about 3 years earlier because she's about 3 now. So he would have been like 25, 26, around there. And the story of him and his ex is that Law and his ex-girlfriend, fling, lover, they weren't serious or anything like that. They were like I don't know, they had this whole situation going on where it's like, they weren't serious, but they were just enjoying their time together, you know? But like, they were also exclusive to each other, so it was kind of like, if it gets more serious, it's not a big deal, but also like, if it doesn't, we had fun, you know? But yeah, so his ex's name is Xandra, or Alexandra, and they co-parented Nat together for about 2 years after Nat was born. They weren't together anymore, because they broke up actually like a month or two before Xandra found out she was pregnant. But like, they lived together for those 2 or so years because they didn't want to do the whole bouncing around thing with a newborn, you know, or an infant. So yeah, for about 2 years, and then Law convinced Xandra to accept a transfer/promotion for work that she had wanted for a long time, and when she finally agreed, she moved out of the country for that. So then he had sole custody. So Law had sole custody, like 95% custody, you know. And then when Xandra would come back into the country for like a couple times a year for like a week or 2 at a time, she would take Nat like full time for that period to spend time with her. But yeah, they've always been like amicable with each other. Their breakup, quote unquote, was like mutual. It was very much like, hey, this has run its course, we had fun, see ya. And at this point, they don't even really think of the other as like an ex because they weren't all that serious. It's more like the other person is just Nat's other parent. And next, who is my favorite character to voice, and conversely, my least favorite to voice? I don't dislike any of the characters' voices, like voicing them, you know? Because if like I actively disliked a character's voice, I would either scrap the character or just change their voice. But there are some that I like more than others, either just because they're fun or because they come naturally or whatever. Like Dion's is always a lot of fun. Just, he's very expressive and just, I don't know, the like raspiness and at times like the childishness that he kind of puts on, you know. That can be a lot of fun. Let me think. Law is pretty fun to do because his accent is pretty similar to my natural accent, that like when I'm not, you know, well, I wouldn't call this a fake accent because I've been doing it so long, but like, I don't know, I just kind of get to let loose my inner childhood accent. And his like voice pitch is a bit more close to mine when I'm not pitching it up, because that's a habit. I'm even pitching it up a little bit right now. The joys of having worked with children for so long, pitching your voice up becomes second nature, and then it becomes a bad habit. Anyway, yeah, Law's pretty fun, also just because of his personality. Like, I like all of them for different reasons. Cyril can be a lot of fun. But yeah, my least favorite, and this is for one very specific reason, is probably Casey. And again, I don't actually dislike voicing him or anything like that. But with Casey's pitch, because I pitch my voice up for him, and also where it sits in my throat, to be able to do like the voice cracks and stuff. After a while of doing his voice, I get a headache. Yeah, like it doesn't hurt my throat or anything at all. But I get a headache after a while, and it doesn't help that he rambles so much that like sometimes I'm like practically hyperventilating. So yeah, when I do his voice for like a long period of time, that can get a little rough. But again, I don't actively dislike voicing him. Like there's aspects of voicing him that I really like. That was a long answer for a short question, I'm sorry. Okay. Next is, what part of the process of making my audios do I enjoy the most and least? This is kind of like the last one where there's not really any parts of the process that I actively dislike. But there are parts that I like more than others. And it also kind of depends on the day. Like some days the writing comes really easy, and other days I'm sitting there contemplating destroying my laptop. But yeah, in general, I'd say the writing is a lot of fun, and like the plotting and like plotting out characters' storylines and stuff, that can be a lot of fun. But I also really like the recording, obviously. Yeah, I'd say it's probably a toss-up between the writing and the recording. Because I love writing, but also my inner theater kid is very happy whenever I get to record something. Yeah. And the least, again, this also kind of depends on the specific audio. Least favorite for some of them is probably adding in the sound effects, which in a lot of the audios it's not bad at all. It's like, a couple of little clips, and other times it's, if you could see my Audacity files with all of the different sound effects that I've had to layer on top of each other and in different places and had to time correctly, and it's a nightmare. It's a self-inflicted nightmare because I chose to do that, but it's a nightmare. Next is, what microphone do I use? I use a Blue Yeti. It's a pretty intermediate microphone, I would say. Like, it's not a, super cheap one. It's not one of the super expensive ones either. And its quality is kind of intermediate too, so I like it. It serves its purpose. Next is, are any of the boys based on or influenced by people in real life? No. Yeah, no, at least not consciously based. I mean, anyone who's like written a character or done anything like that can probably tell you that like you subconsciously pick on like traits and stuff like that from everyone around you, including like even people that you see in other forms of media, like on TV and stuff, But yeah, no, I didn't consciously base any of my characters on anyone I know or anything like that, or on any specific person. It's just kind of, they're all an amalgamation of traits, which isn't that what we all are? Getting philosophical tonight. Yeah. Next is, can I explain some more about essence eaters? They are similar to vampires and incubus, right? Yeah. I won't go too in depth because we'll be kind of exploring a bit more of the nuances of them, especially with Marlowe's series. But yeah, essentially, essence eaters are pretty much like if all of the like humanoid and mythical creatures that feed on other people in some way, shape, or form, if all of those legends actually came from one specific type of person. So it's like, there's the stories of the vampires and incubi and succubi and all that. But it turns out that they were actually just the same type of person. Just on Monday we ate spaghetti and on Tuesday we had pizza, I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, it's essentially a group of people who have different methods of feeding on other people, and it is very much like food for them, and we'll see with Marlowe's series and another Essence Eater that may or may not be on the channel. They can have, like, in a sense, like, allergies or like food sensitivities, but to different types of feeding. So like an Essence Eater might not be able to handle eating blood or drinking blood, like it just doesn't agree with them or something, or they break out in hives. But yeah, that's essentially how that works. And next we have, at some point, do I plan on making flashback videos for characters that already knew their listener in their first video? Like Law, Desmond, Cyril, Gage, all them. And yes, that is coming. Actually, Law's audio at the end of October. His autumn themed video, that one is actually going to be a flashback of his first meeting with his listener. So you have that to look forward to. And I do have others that are planned. I just don't know specifically when they'll come out. But yeah, there's some flashbacks that are, gonna be happening. Next, what characters are my favorites? That's like asking me to pick a child. I like them all for different reasons, I don't know, because, again, I like them all for different reasons. Like, Cyril is really fun to write. I love writing his scripts, but, like, Dion is really fun to play, and, Roman is fun to write, too, especially his more angsty, dramatic moments. Yeah, like, I like all of them for different reasons. That doesn't really answer your question, but I don't know if I have an answer to it. It depends on the day. Next, what program do I use to make the art in my videos? And what program do I use to make the video itself? So, to make the art, and like, the backgrounds, all that, I use Clip Studio Paint. And to make the videos, well, I record in Audacity and edit in Audacity, and then to put it all together, I use a program called OpenShot Video Editor. And in there, I, mash it all together into the finished product. Okay, next is, do I have any idea how the different stories are going to end, if they have a planned ending? Or am I going with the flow? It's honestly a little bit of both. I have a very select few characters who have, like, a planned ending, if that makes sense. Not to be foreboding. But yeah, I have a few of them who have, like, a planned finish, like where I want them to fully end up. But for all of them, I have, like, the main story beats, I guess you could say, like the main events, plot points that I want to cover, and kind of the direction that I want their relationship with their listener to go. Yeah, so it's a little of both. Next is, judging by the playlists, my taste in music is pretty eclectic, but do I have a favorite genre or artist/band? Yeah, my music taste is kind of all over the place. I listen to just about everything. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I've ever mentioned the playlists on YouTube, so just to clue you in, I have a bunch of different, like, inspiration playlists for each of my characters that I use to, like, get into their head and, listen to while I'm either drawing for them or writing for them or whatever. I can put the link in the description for anyone that wants to listen to them, because I think I've only mentioned it on Discord and on Tumblr, so yeah. Anyway, back to the question. Yeah, I listen to just about everything. But I will say that the genres that are most consistent will like I'll be listening to them and other stuff. It's usually like various subgenres of rock and metal. Like those are usually kind of my consistent genres. As far as bands that I've been listening to lately and artists and all that, I've been listening to Ghost, Frou Frou, because nostalgia. Will Wood, David Keenan, Ivy Levon, Amigo the Devil, yeah, kind of all over the place. But yeah. Okay, next is, if I could describe each of my characters in one word, what would it be? And if I had to live in a video game, what would I pick? Okay, we're going no thoughts head empty again. I'm just gonna, bam, 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 words. So, these may not make sense, but these are just first words that come to mind. Okay, Casey, flower, Cyril, tired, Desmond. Okay. The first word that came to mind is something that Gage has said about Desmond. I don't know if it's actually even been directly referenced well, it was vaguely referenced in one of Desmond's videos. But, okay, so this is according to Gage. Desmond, Daddy, Dion, attachment issues with a hyphen in the middle. That counts, right? Ellis, book. Gage, shit stirrer with a hyphen in the middle. Jacob, no. Kane, morning. Oh, I made myself sad. Law, again, because of Gage. Dad, also just in general. Marlo, grieving. Oh, these are two very different ends to the spectrum. Neo, orange. Roman, watch. Okay, yeah, so that's all of them in one word. The words might not have made sense, but one word. And if I had to be in a video game, honestly, I would pick something like Rune Factory or Harvest Moon or like Stardew Valley, because it's like you just show up and you get a free house and you can just farm and live your life, and if you want, no one will bother you. There's no taxes or rent, and yeah, that's just the life. And in Rune Factory you can have pet monsters. I mean, that's fucking cool. So yeah, but I texted two different people, a friend of mine and my younger brother. My friend had a bit of a concerning response. He said fear and hunger, which if you've ever played the game, yeah. I asked him about it later, and luckily he said that I wouldn't be fighting my way through the game. I would probably be like some kind of boss or something, but still just a little horrifying. And then my younger brother, the shit that he is. Yeah, that was his response. I don't even know if they made a game of that. If they did, it's probably like some kind of online MMO type thing, you know? But yeah, so that is both the spectrum of people that are in my life and also the spectrum of my own personality, apparently. Yeah. Anyway, next we have, how long does the whole video process take from start to finish? And do I usually have a plan or outline ahead of time for the scripts, or do I wing it? Okay, so the process kind of depends on a lot of factors, like how long it takes. Like, some days the writing goes really well, and it'll only take me like, I don't know, an hour or two to get the full script out and edited and formatted and all that. Other days it drags on so horribly that I want to cry in a corner. Which, anyone who writes, you probably get that, I hope. I'm not alone in that, right? Yeah, and like the recording, again, it depends on like how long the script is, but in general, if I'm not making like a ton of mistakes and having to redo things, it takes me about 2 to 3 times as long to record as the final product. So if the final video is like 15 minutes long, chances are I spent roughly like 45 minutes recording, 30 to 45, around there. Yeah, and like editing, again, it depends on how much for like sound effects I'm putting in and things like that, and how many mistakes I need to edit out, and little random noises like my knees popping or me accidentally smacking the wall or something like that. Because some of the characters I talk with my hands, like Dion, I do all the time, and I always end up hitting something. Yeah, so I would say on average, from the very beginning of like plotting out the script to final product, I'd say roughly 5-6 hours, give or take. And I usually have a very like vague idea for each video before I go into like writing the script. Like when I'm planning out what videos I want on what day, like the schedule, I'll have a very vague idea of what I want to accomplish in that video, whether that be a plot thing, that I want to cover, or if it's something more generic, like, oh, this is just going to be like a sleep aid, and, something vaguely about what's going on in there. Yeah, so that's what I start with, and then sometimes I'll plot it out and just kind of do like in my notes app or something, like random sentences or key points that I want to get through in that audio. And other times I will just kind of wing it and just start writing. Yeah, it's kind of 50-50. Some days the writing just comes just like that, and I don't need to plot anything out. It's a really smooth process, and other days it's a battle. Okay, next. For each character, which audio is my favorite, and which script was the most difficult to record? Okay, so, I don't know if I have a favorite for each character. For a lot of them, it's like the most recent one becomes my new favorite for them. I will say, though, I have some favorites in general that I really like. Cyril's Confession. That one I like, because, I don't know, it warms my heart. Yeah, and, Law, his, where, I don't remember the title. I have horrible memory. But the one where he's, like, comforting his listener, like, through some anxiety after the whole attack thing, and he lays in bed with them and tells them, like, the legend of the origin of Essence Eaters. That one I really liked. I liked the experiment log between Roman and Cyril. That one was fun. Yeah, I like all of them for different reasons. I'm just indecisive. Yeah, so I would say those ones in general are currently some of my favorites. The script that was the most difficult to record. I forget which one it is in the series. But in Desmond's like confession series at the lake, there's one of the audios where there's not a lot, but quite a bit of dialogue from every single voiced character that is there. So I had to record as Desmond, as Law, as Gage, and as Neo, and it was an experience. It wasn't a bad experience, but it was an experience. Yeah, so just having to switch between the voices, because I did it all in one sitting, because I am a genius. And all of the editing, because I had to edit so many tracks. Yeah, that one, I liked it, but also, it was not easy. Okay, and next, who is my favorite character to voice? Again, I'd say probably, at least as of right now, probably Dion, but there are a lot of close seconds. Next, what inspired me to start making content, and what does my script writing process look like? Originally, back in ye old yesteryear, like, I don't know, 2018, 2019, something like that. Originally back then, I wanted to get into, like, audio RPs and ASMR RPs, things like that. But life stuff got in the way. So that ended up getting scrapped until this year, earlier this year, or maybe even like very late the year before last year. Yeah, whatever. Time is an illusion. Yeah, I decided I was gonna get back into it and just kind of take the leap, because I have the horrible habit of starting something and then talking myself out of it and not following through. So I pretty much just told myself, okay, you're gonna start putting stuff out there and stick with it. And I didn't have the greatest equipment at the beginning because I wasn't 100% sure I was actually going to follow through, and I didn't want to, put $100 into a new mic if I wasn't going to go anywhere with it. But yeah, woo. I'm glad I stuck with it because this has been a lot of fun. And what does my script writing process look like? It usually, like I said before, kind of starts with like a very vague idea of what I want to accomplish, and then I will gradually get like more and more specific. So I'll start out with anxiety comfort or something like that, like very vague. And then I'll get into specifics like, okay, what's the cause? Are we going to specify a cause, or is this just going to be kind of like a general thing? And then, like, the main beats of the story, like, okay, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, And then I'll kind of fill in the blanks and smooth it all out. Other times, it's literally just, I sit down in front of the keyboard, and like a man possessed, I'll just start slapping it, and words happen. It's magic. Next, what are the zodiac signs of my characters? Now, just to be clear, I showed you the birthdays and stuff of them before. I didn't pick their birthdays with their zodiac signs in mind, so I have no idea if they're fitting of them. So, yeah, take everything with a grain of salt, because I'm not super read up on the whole zodiac signs thing. Casey is a Cancer, Cyril is a Libra, Desmond is a Capricorn, Dion, because he doesn't have a specific birthday, he doesn't really have one, so you can assign him whatever you want, like, whatever feels fitting, like, Dion's a Leo in spirit. I don't know if he is or not, but you know what I mean. Ellis is a Scorpio. Woo, samesies. Gage is a Taurus. Jacob, we don't know his birthday, so yeah, pick one if you want. Kane, again, whatever speaks to him. Law is a Leo. Marlo is an Aquarius. Neo is a Gemini. And Roman is a Leo. Okay, next. How old am I? I am 24. Had to think for a second. I'm 24 right now. Almost 25, but currently 24. Which of my characters do I relate to the most? There's none of them that I look at and be like, that one's me, you know? But there's parts in all of them that I can relate to, in the same way that just about any fictional character in any sort of media, I can usually find something in them that I relate to, even if it's something small. But if I had to pick one of them, I'd say maybe Law, because, I don't know, our mindsets, I guess, are kind of similar. Where, like, it's kind of easy for me to get into his head when writing him, because he thinks in a similar, not the same, but similar way to me, so, yeah. Yeah, maybe Law with, like, a bit of Desmond mixed in. Just a little bit. But again, there's parts in all of them that I can relate to. Well, Jacob, well, I guess he's the photography. That's all for Jacob. Okay, what's my favorite kind of video to make? Maybe like the more dramatic, angsty ones. Like, I like the, you know, fluffier, sweeter ones too, but the drama just speaks to me, you know? My inner theater kid. Yeah, so maybe those. And thank you, by the way. Next, where did I get my inspiration for the world and story that my audios take part in? Oh, and thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. But where do I get the inspiration? I don't know. I think I might have mentioned it on Discord like once, but I've talked more about it on Tumblr. But the actual, like, premise of everything in this, like with the cross points and the alternate dimensions and all that, and everything that plays into that, it was actually originally going to be a comic several years ago. Like 4 years ago, something like that. But life happened, which made it pretty much impossible for me to be able to work on it, so I ended up having to drop it. Figures the one time I actually was going to follow through, life had other plans for me. And a lot of that honestly came from, like, daydreaming. Like, when it was still a comic. So, like, I think Law and Desmond are the only two characters that were actually directly carried over from the comic. They were altered in the process because the comic took place in a different universe than this one. Like, it was in one of the quote-unquote alternate universes. So what was their story in the comic is now kind of like their backstory now. Yeah, honestly, a lot of it is just, I don't know, it just comes to me. That's not a very good answer. But, like, I've been writing and world building since I was a little kid. Like, 6, I think, was when I wrote my first short story. The only thing I remember is that it involved a music box that killed people. Like, the music that played from it killed people. I watched a lot of Goosebumps as a kid. Anyway. Yeah. So, like, a lot of times, it'll be, like, a very vague idea that'll pop in my head, like, hey, what if this? And then I just kind of roll with it, and then it picks stuff up as it rolls, and then suddenly you got a giant snowball that's gonna take out anyone in its path. But, yeah. Next, what is my favorite scent or perfume. I'm not like a really big cologne kind of person, you know? Yeah, like my dad never really wore anything like that. My brothers don't, so it's just never really been a thing for me. But when I do have some kind of scent, it's usually like a lotion. That doesn't really answer your question. But it's usually either like something citrus scented or like vanilla, but a spicy vanilla, you know, like a spiced vanilla, not like a dessert vanilla. I need to take a break. I need water. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so do I prefer to create the angst or the fluff? And thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy both from me. I do like both, but again, I'm gonna say the angst just for the drama of it all, you know? It's fun. Alright, next. Thank you again. I'm glad you like Cyril. Let's see, what would each of my characters and myself think of the game D&D? Well, we'll start with myself. I have wanted to get into it, but I've never really had anyone in my life that was like also into it that I could play with. But yeah, I've wanted to get into it, and hopefully I will someday. Now onto the characters. Casey, I could see him getting into it and being into it, but he would only play it with people that he's like super close with, you know? Like, I feel like he'd be a bit too self-conscious to like really get into the game if someone that he doesn't know super well and isn't like very comfortable with was in the group. So yeah, he probably only plays with like a small group of people, like his listener and Lauren and maybe a couple of other people. Cyril, I don't know if he would play it. If he would, he'd have to be like dragged into it. But no, I could see him as not being directly involved with any of the actual gameplay, but he would attend just so he could be like rule enforcer. He would relish in that job. He would like sit there and just listen to people play and make sure that they are following the rules and that nothing's getting fudged or anything like that, you know? Yeah, that would be him. People would be like, why is he even here? And he's like, I am here to maintain order. Yeah, that would be Cyril. Desmond, I don't know if he would. I don't know. I feel like he doesn't really have an opinion on it. Maybe he could, like, with, like, a lot of poking and prodding from Law or someone like that, you know, like, just someone close to him, he might be willing to play, but I feel like he's kind of indifferent to it. Dion, yeah, he would get into it. He'd be like a total gremlin with it too. Complete chaos. Ellis, I could see them playing. Yeah. And they would be the one who would like got really into it, like full on showing up in complete costume, painting like a bunch of minis and stuff for both themselves and like everyone else, bring their own props, everything. Yeah, they're committed. That if they're gonna play, they're gonna play. Gage, oddly enough, I feel like he would be hesitant to play. I feel like he would be a little bit, I don't know, I feel like he would be kind of afraid of making a mistake and like going into it and not knowing much about it. And if he was with a group of people who did kind of know what they were doing, I feel like he would kind of feel out of place. But once he did kind of reach his comfort zone, you know, got a little bit more in tune with everything that was going on, I feel like he would like it. But yeah, I feel like he'd be a little hesitant at first. Kane, he's another one that he probably doesn't know what it is, but I feel like he would kind of watch in horror at whatever Dion has going on while he's playing. He would just kind of like be like the meme of your dad who will never sit down to watch the movie with you. He's like, no, I'm not watching. I'm just here for just a minute. I don't need to sit down. And so he stands in the back of the room for the entirety of the movie. That would be like Kane, but with D&D. Law. Yeah, I could see him being into it. He probably hasn't played in a while with Nat and everything like that. But like when he was younger, before he had Nat, I could see him playing and all that. Yeah, he'd probably be like a bit more of like a casual player, not as all out like Ellis or something. But yeah, Marlowe. I feel like he's heard of it, but he's never played it or really had too much of an interest in playing it. It's not really on his radar. Neo, I think, would also be hesitant to start playing, but for different reasons than Gage. I feel like Neo would be nervous about embarrassing himself, like especially like the role play elements and just all of that, the interactions within the world and the game and all that. I feel like he would be afraid of doing something wrong. So yeah, but like Gage, I think he also would kind of get into the swing of things and get more comfortable with time. But yeah, I think he'd be a little hesitant at first. Roman, I don't know if he's ever played or ever even heard of it, but if he was introduced to it, I feel like he would like it. Yeah, he'd be pretty into it. Okay, so next, what do I think are the character's MBTI types? And this is real commitment right here. In reality, it's just that I couldn't sleep and got bored, so I actually took the test as each of the characters. I mean, I could have just looked at the list of the different types and, just arbitrarily assigned one, but no, that's not good enough for me. So yeah, I took the test as each and every one of them, and these are the results. Okay, Casey is an ISFJ. Cyril is an ISTJ. Desmond is another ISTJ. Dion is an ESTP. Ellis is an ENFP. Gage is also an ENFP. Jacob, I genuinely couldn't figure his out because so many of the questions have to do with like interactions with other human beings and just experiences within the world, and that's not Jacob. So yeah, Jacob is whatever you want him to be in more ways than one. Kane is an ISTJ. Law is an ENFP. We've got a lot of those. Marlowe is an ISTP. Neo is an ISTJ. And Roman is an INTP. Yeah, so that's all those. What Hogwarts houses do I think the characters are? That one I will leave up to you. Yeah. I just don't really get into her stuff, because lots of reasons. So yeah, you're free to assign them as you please. Okay, next. Will I ever show what I look like? I kind of have. Not on the channel, but like on Tumblr, I've done like a face reveal of sorts and kind of like a half face reveal on Discord. But yeah, so it's like I'm not against showing my face. It's it could happen. I don't currently have a plan to, like, have my face in any videos right now, but yeah, it's not like a secret or anything. Will I ever do crossover type stuff, like bringing in another VA / acting in someone else's videos? Like I said before, I don't currently have any, like, concrete plans with anyone. Like, I'm not talking to anyone about it, but yeah, that's definitely something I'd be open to in the future, either featuring someone in my videos or, you know, being in someone else's videos if they wanted me. Yeah. Do I have a planned date for when the Patreon is dropping? I do. Assuming everything goes well, it will be launching October 18th, so next week. I've got some audios and stuff that I want to have fully recorded so I can have them up when I launch it, you know? So, assuming nothing goes horribly wrong, October 18th. Next. Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that you have been enjoying my stuff. Okay, so when writing my characters, how would I usually do it? Like, do I do character mapping, or does it just come naturally? A little of both. A lot of the characters, at least for the channel, like aside from Des and Law, because they were kind of, you know, just a bit of rewriting of existing characters, but all the other ones kind of first came with like an elevator pitch, if you know what that is, where it's like describing something in 1 or 2 sentences, like describing the general idea within like 10-15 seconds. So a lot of them I had like just this very general idea of what I wanted this character to encompass, what I wanted to accomplish with this character, and like just their personality boiled down to 1 or 2 sentences. And I have in my notes app here, I have a note with all of the original ones. I'm just looking at Neo's and it makes me laugh. So, Neo's elevator pitch, and a lot of these are not appropriate for YouTube, so gotta choose my words wisely. Neo is someone who's more inexperienced but cocky, getting their shit rocked by someone quieter but much more experienced. So obviously, like, much more nuance is put into it, and some things are scrapped and some things are added, but like, you kind of get the general idea. Like, that's what I start with, and then usually from there I will build it up, and it'll be like, oh, what if this, and then yeah, just Frankenstein's monster it, you know. Just mash it all together. Yeah, so it's like a little bit of naturally and a little bit of mapping. Like for details and stuff like that, I'll do mapping, and like if I want to accomplish something very specific with the character where like I really want a lot of background and info in it, I'll do some mapping, but a lot of it's just letting my mind wander and seeing what's interesting. What's the brand / model of my microphone? I use a Blue Yeti, and also with like the background static or like air noise, what you can do, I know most recording software has this capability, but in Audacity at least, I will record like 10 seconds of just complete silence, not even breathing, just to get the air sound. And then if you highlight it and you go to effect and noise removal and repair, go to noise reduction, you can click on the like get audio or whatever that button is. I forget what it's labeled as. I can't exactly go into it now because I'm recording in Audacity. But you go there and it scans that like 5-10 second clip of noise, and then if you highlight all of the audio that you want that noise removed from, if you highlight all of that and again go into noise reduction, you can click like remove noise or something like that. It's labeled, yeah. And it will scan all of that audio and it will remove the noise that you assigned to it, that white air noise, you know. So yeah, that can help too. But the Blue Yeti in general is pretty good about not picking up a lot of that background noise even without doing this. And then what do I usually do in my in my spare time, besides making all my videos and stuff? I don't know, I do a lot of things. Like I'll play video games, like when I'm not working. I like various forms of art, so like photography, like visual arts, like drawing and painting. I like to listen to a lot of music. I've been trying to get back into singing because it's been a while and my range has been destroyed, especially my upper range. You know, like when I was a kid, I could do whistle notes. I can't anymore. I'm a baritone now. But yeah, I like exploring nature, cooking, all that fun stuff. And do I read books? And if I can, then list like 5 or so of my favorites. I love to read, but lately I've not had the time or energy to like actually sit down and read anything. So I'm kind of going off of the top of my head from memory of ones that I've enjoyed, but also like my memory is non-existent. So I guess maybe the Howl's Moving Castle like that whole series, just because nostalgia. The Howl's Moving Castle, Castle in the Air, and House of Many Ways. I think that's the name of all 3. Again, because nostalgia. Let me think. I like pretty much anything by Brandon Sanderson. My mind is drawing a blank. If you, or anyone, if you've got, like, any recommendations for good books, absolutely, like, let me know, because I want to get back into reading more. Because it's been too long since I've really sat down and read anything. Okay, next. Is there more of my world's lore that I haven't said in the lore videos? Or lore of the characters, anything like that? And am I planning on adding more lore and making a video on it in the future? Yeah, there's a lot more lore. Both just because of time constraints with the original lore videos, like, if I actually went fully in depth with all of the topics, it would have been like 8 hours of just me rambling. But yeah, so there's a lot more of that. And then there's a lot of topics that I was purposefully very kind of vague with because it's intended, like, even in universe, they don't know too much about it yet. Or there's some things that they are wrong about, you know? So yeah, like, things specific to characters and just lore about the universe, it's definitely going to be explored more and more in depth. And yeah, I could see like me putting out another like series of lore videos later on when like enough new stuff has been established. Yeah, because like one of the main reasons I wanted to do the lore videos too was so that people didn't have to watch every single playlist to get all of the information, especially with like, you know, like Jacob or anything like that. If people aren't comfortable watching that, I don't want them to feel forced to just to get a couple morsels of lore. So yeah, in the future I could see me doing another series like that, like an updated series. And thank you, I'm glad you find it interesting. Okay, next. I'm very happy to hear that you like them. And I get that with the professor. It's yeah. So, which Hogwarts house am I in, and could I consider doing an odd? Where did it go? I'm reading these off of my phone. If I could do a vaguely like Hogwarts-esque academia vibe, the last time I took the like sorting test was a long time ago, but I do remember I took it twice, one on one day and then another like a few days later. And I remember one time I got Slytherin and another time I got Hufflepuff, so that's an interesting combo. And I don't plan on doing anything like directly Hogwarts related, but like as far as like some kind of boarding school setting, I won't say it's impossible. It could happen. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of like neither a yes nor a no. Little of middle ground, you know? Okay. Next, we have... Thank you. Just lots of thank yous all over here. Okay, so... When I get a new roll of toilet paper, do I hang the flap over or under? Over. If animals could talk, what species would be the most disrespectful? Squirrels. I've met a lot of asshole squirrels. You ever met like college campus squirrels? They'll go for the eyes. Do I think mermaids have actual babies or lay eggs? That begs further questions like, are they technically a mammal? Is this a platypus kind of thing where they're a mammal but they lay eggs? Or are they more considered fish? What's the reproductive system like? I'm not going to Google that because I'm going to see things that I don't really want to see. But honestly, it's probably eggs. Just because it's like, you know, the whole bottom half, but also what's going on with the internal organs. This requires further thought. What color would I choose if I had to eat a crayon straight from the box? Does this include the paper that's wrapped on it, or do I get to like shuck it first? Either way, I'd say like sky blue. That like bright sky blue. As a kid, I remember always thinking that looked really good. I never ate a crayon, mind you, okay? I don't want anyone saying that I eat crayons, because I have never eaten a crayon that I know of. But as a little kid, I also liked that like bright sky blue ice cream that you could get at Baskin Robbins. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. I just remember as a little kid, I always called it the Blue's Clues ice cream. And that crayon just reminds me of that. So, yeah. If I could make something illegal, what would it be? Well, aside from, like, the obvious, like, you know, actual bad stuff, like bigotry and war, being a warmonger, being a billionaire, all that stuff. I don't know. Large-scale commercial fishing. Yeah, let's go with that. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I'd say the egg, because, like, other things lay eggs, and there's dinosaurs back then and all that, you know? Next, we have pronouns. My pronouns are he, him, or they, them. Whichever. Do I like horror games? And if so, what's my favorite? I do like horror games. I like all kinds. But recently I've been playing Darkwood, which is really fun. That's like kind of like a survival horror, macabre kind of thing. But The Evil Within 1, I think, for all of its flaws, it's just the vibes, you know? I love it. The late 1800s, early 1900s cult thing that it's got going on, it's like, it's good. Which character is the hardest to voice and which is the easiest to voice? The hardest is, well, Desmond can be hard to keep him monotone. Yeah, like his voice itself isn't difficult, but keeping him monotone. Because as he's getting more comfortable with his listener, he's a little less monotone, but especially like towards the beginning, he was very short, clipped answers and very monotone, and that was kind of difficult to do. But aside from him, Casey, just because of the whole headache thing. Easiest, oddly enough, probably Dion is up there. I don't know, it's just his voice is very easy to hold for some reason. But also Law, just because I can kind of fall into my natural speaking habits. Let me think. Yeah, that's probably up there. Next, okay, we've got preferred snacks, sweet or salty. Probably salty. I don't really have much of a sweet tooth. Occasionally, I'll be in the mood to have something sweet, but usually I prefer like savory and salty things. Do audio ideas pop into my head randomly, or is there something that I do to brainstorm or invoke creativity? A lot of times they'll just kind of pop into my head, but also it's a little bit of brainstorming because like a lot of them come to me when like I'm listening to music or something, where like, I don't know, something in whatever song I'm listening to will just like spark something and be like, oh, that'd be a good idea, and I write it down. But yeah, there's also the brainstorming element of like the big events that I want to happen with each character, like the more story driven ones, you know. Like well, it hasn't happened yet, but like Gage's mom, everything with that, or like a lot of stuff with Roman and like time travel and the events in his story, or like Cyril's confession, you know, like all of them have big things that I want to cover like in a certain order with other stuff interspersed in there, and those big things I've got, you know, plotted out and all that, but a lot of it just kind of comes. This is kind of along the same lines of, do I plan out the plot / story for each character in advance? And okay, we'll do the next part after this. Yeah, like I said before, it's a little bit of like plotting like the main stuff, and then a lot of them I kind of keep, like I give each of their storylines some wiggle room, because as things go along in the story, they kind of start to take on a life of their own. They start to write themselves in a way where you might like have a plan where you want to go with something, but then as you're writing it, it'll just fit more for them to go in a different direction. Yeah, so it's like I'll do vague plots, like, okay, this is what I want to happen, but also if something else starts to fit better, then I'll kind of go in that way. Okay, and the second part, since it's spooky season, how would each character react to going through a haunted house with their listener? Casey, he'd panic, but I feel like, you know how a lot of people, when they're nervous, they'll kind of almost start to sing to themselves, like in a sing-songy voice, like they're trying to soothe themselves. That would be him. Cyril, I feel like it would be hard to get him to go into the haunted house in the first place. He'd like try to brush it off, be like, it's a waste of time, you know, like, why are we here? So yeah, it'd be hard to get him in there, but I feel like his pride would keep him from, he would do everything in his power to not react. But I feel like he'd jump a couple times, you know, and then try to play it off, like, no, that didn't happen. Desmond. He doesn't scare easily. So I feel like he'd be like a little bit unsettled, but I don't know if he would get like genuinely freaked out or scared or anything like that. But I do think that in a haunted house with like scare actors and stuff, they would absolutely target him because he's like the big stoic guy, you know. So they'd try to break him. But it'd be difficult. Dion. He, after the first time, he wouldn't be allowed in there anymore. I feel like he would accidentally set something on fire. Like, I feel like he'd be very jumpy. Ellis, I feel like, honestly, they actually would, like, genuinely feel pretty calm through the whole thing. I don't know why, I just get that vibe where, like, unless, like, there's probably one specific kind of thing that would freak them out, like clowns or something, I don't know. And if that was there, they'd get a little freaked out. But otherwise, they're just like, they're zen, you know? They're just cool, calm, and collected. Gage. He's a little like Dion. I feel like he would be very jumpy. Although he'd probably also use Gage would be the one like going into it like, oh, you can hold on to me if you get scared, but then he's the one that ends up like clinging to the person next to him. Bonus points if it's not even Bug. Like just some random person that's in their group, or like a scare actor. Yeah, that would be Gage. Jacob is the horror. Kane. If he actually went through a haunted house because he can't disguise himself, he would get a lot of attention because he'd be like, oh, you came in costume. And I feel like that he would be more annoyed than anything. Law. I feel like he probably doesn't go through haunted houses, or at least not once with scare actors, because I feel like his first instinct is to punch. And I feel like he knows that, so like he doesn't want to risk accidentally like actually hurting someone that jumps out at him, you know? Yeah. Marlowe, he is another one that his first instinct is probably to punch. But also I feel like it's been a couple years since, like, if he did ever go through a haunted house, it's been a couple years since before his series of unfortunate events. Neo, it would be very difficult to get him in there because he would know that he would freak out, and it's like he doesn't want people to see him like that, you know? Yeah, so you'd really have to needle him, like really poke and prod at him to get him to agree, and you'd probably have to like challenge him in some way. Like if Gage challenged him, he'd probably be down to do it. Like, okay, yeah, you know what, let's do this, let's go. Once he's in there though, he would be like, for lack of a better word, a screamer. Like he would, like he'd try to play it cool, but then as soon as something freaked him out, it'd be screaming and be like, nope, I'm out of here, see ya, you're on your own. Roman, I don't know, I feel like he would really enjoy them. Like, he'd be that person that as he's going through, he's like laughing and just like downright gleeful. Like he's just having the time of his life. Yeah, that'd be Roman. Next, what would each of my characters dress up as for Halloween? That one's a little tricky, let me think. Okay, we're just going no thoughts, head empty, first thing that pops into my head again. Okay. Casey, Scarecrow. I don't know why. Scarecrow. Is it the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz? I don't know, but it's a Scarecrow. Cyril. It would be very difficult to get him into a costume. But if you did, it'd be something subtle. I don't know what it'd be. Like maybe some kind of mad scientist or like a scientist, where he gets to use his lab coat. Where it's just, yeah. Like, there's no way he's going out and buying a costume for himself. Like, if you bought the costume for him, then maybe. But it wouldn't be easy. Desmond. I don't think he would go out and buy a costume for himself, but like if Newbie or Law or like a family member bought it for him, he'd feel obligated to wear it. And it would be, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If you have any ideas, feel free to shoot them off at me, because, yeah, I have no clue for Desmond. Dion. There's a couple for him that I could think of. Either he would wear the demon costume that his listener that they bought together, which he would be very irritated about, but either that, or I feel like he'd wear something like really frilly, like a very over-the-top maid costume or something. Like, I could see him really leaning into that. I don't know why, but I just can. Don't question what goes on in my mind. Yeah, anyway. Ellis, they would... I don't know which character it'd be, but it'd be a character from a book. Yeah. I don't know. Book character. Generic book character. Gage. He would go all out with his costume. He would do like couples costumes. Yeah. I also feel like a lot of times he would pick the costumes that are like most not inappropriate, as in like, dong hanging out. But like inappropriate for the holiday. Dressing up as like the Grinch, and I don't remember the name of the dog, but the dog from the Grinch. Like dressing up as them on Halloween or something like that, or like the Easter Bunny. Yeah, that he would enjoy that. Jacob, another one where I don't know if he would really get a costume, and this was talked about on Discord too, but like if he did dress up, it'd be as something to like intentionally make the people around him uncomfortable, especially like Darling. Like a hint, nudge, nudge at all the horrors that are going on, like their deal and all that fun stuff. Kane. You'd have to wrestle Kane into a costume, but that's a mental image. But he would eventually relent and wear whatever it is that Dion... There's too many options there. It would be something that Dion would find funny, but also like he would absolutely get him like the skimpiest outfit possible. Okay, let's see. Law. He would do like group costumes with Nat, like matching costumes. So it'd be like whatever Nat is wearing, he would wear a complimentary costume to go trick-or-treating with her. Marlo. I don't think he would. He's not really in a position to dress up in fun costumes right now, and even when he was younger, like even as a kid, I don't think he really wore like Halloween costumes. That just wasn't a priority. Neo. Ordinarily, personally, I don't think he would dress up, but once he got together with Darling, I think he would, one, to just, like, one-up Gage, like, hey, they're wearing a couple costumes, why can't we, you know? But, yeah, I feel like after they got together, then that kind of became a thing. I also feel that it would be hilarious if, like, he dressed up as, like, a fox, and his listener Darling dressed up as a wolf. That would be hilarious to me. I don't know why. And then finally, Roman. He would... Dressing up for Halloween wasn't really a thing for him growing up. But now, I could see him really leaning into it. He'd be like full on mad scientist. Yeah. Okay, I think that's all of them. Next, how did the thought of making ASMR videos come to mind for me? Well, not always, because obviously these kind of things haven't been around forever. But for quite a while, like, I've enjoyed, like, ASMR and ASMR RPs and, like, character stuff. And I've always enjoyed world building and creating characters and all that. And so I was kind of like, sure, let's do it, you know? Yeah, so, yeah, like I said earlier, I had originally wanted to several years ago, back when, like, ASMR RPs and audio RPs and stuff like that were still relatively new. Not new, but, you know, they weren't as big as they are now. Yeah, so that ended up falling through, and now I'm doing it now. What do I think are cuter, baby penguins or baby cows? Baby cows, because I grew up in the country and surrounded by, like, dairy farms and cows and cattle of all sorts. And the babies are adorable. What's my favorite snack? I don't know, it kind of depends. I go through phases pretty regularly. Recently, I've been having a ton of those cinnamon apple straws, like the like freeze-dried kind of things, you know? Like the veggie straws, but made of apples. I've just been eating a ton of those, because, I don't know, they're good. But, let's see. If I could travel anywhere in the world, where would I go? There's a lot of places I want to go that I will probably never be able to afford to go to, but, you know. Like, I'd really like to visit New Zealand. I would really like to visit northern China. That area, the landscape, I don't know, it's just really cool. And, like, Mongolia. I'd really like to visit Sweden and just Scandinavia in general, because I've got a lot of family from there, and so kind of like to experience it. Yeah, there's a lot of places. Yeah. Okay, and then what kind of music do I listen to? I kind of answered this before, but yeah, like, I listen to just about everything. I'd say there's no genre of music that I actually dislike, where, like, if someone puts it on, I'll be like, turn that off. No. But I'll go through phases where certain genres will really kind of speak to me. Lately, I've also been really into, like, Southern Gothic music, which, like, Amigo the Devil kind of fits into, and, like, that kind of folk sound, but also, like, a lot of rock, alternative rock, all that, and metal, things like that. Yeah. And last but not least, do I have specific appearances for all my characters? Because of, like, you know, used to be the comic, so yeah. And then how much do they differ from their comic verse counterparts? Technically, the only characters that are a direct carryover, like, fully from the comic, are Desmond and Law. But there are several characters currently in the audioverse that are heavily influenced by characters in the comic. Yeah, but I wouldn't say that any of their appearances in my mind carried over, like even Desmond and Law, even though they are kind of like the same character in a new version of the universe. They're so far separated from their original comic versions that I don't even think of what they looked like anymore. Yeah, so that's kind of completely separate from me. And the other characters that are just like kind of influenced by existing characters, again, they don't really have that like mental image that's associated with their quote unquote original designs. Yeah, so like I might, as far as sharing that stuff, I probably won't share any visuals of actual characters that are in the audioverse that could, yeah. On Tumblr, I know I've shared some drawings of Desmond's ex back in like the comic, you know. But the only reason I shared that is because that character isn't the same as his ex in the audio version, if that makes sense. So there's not really any carryover there. But yes, I probably won't share any direct visuals. I might share some of more like side characters that aren't as associated with existing characters, but I just want to avoid people feeling like they have to envision certain characters in certain ways, you know, when I myself am not even imagining them that way anymore. And then, do I have specific fashion styles in mind for all my characters? Not really all of them. There's details that have kind of wormed their way in, like Desmond liking various kinds of jewelry, whether it be like collecting it or wearing it, whatever. Yeah, like things like that have kind of wormed their way in, but aside from that, I don't really have like a mental image of what their style would be or what they would wear, things like that, so really it's kind of all up to you. Okay, well, I have been talking for almost 2 hours now, and it's probably very audible in my voice. Water breaks were not enough. Anyway, thank you all so much for the questions. It was kind of baffling to see how many there were. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and whether you were actually like listening to what I was saying here or just playing it in the background, either way, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, bye-bye.